Wycon Cosmetics has come out with the spring collection. This is the Vichy Garden collection, which is very much like garden, tea party, soft pastel vibes. And I bought a few things. We're gonna get into it. I'm gonna be trying out and tell you how I feel. So let's do it. Okay, so I bought 4 things in this collection, but this collection is way bigger than that. Like there's so much in this collection. Let's start out with the Soft Tan bronzing powder that I bought. This is the shade Cool, and it is kind of like a putty feeling, cream to powder feeling bronzer. This is the shade Cool. I do think there's a little bit of an interesting undertone to it. Almost a little bit like olivey maybe. There's almost a little bit something green to it. We're gonna see how it's gonna work on my skin tone, but when I read Cool, I'm like, okay, that's probably the one that I should try because I do have a neutral to cool undertone. So we're just gonna zoom in and try this one out. My eye has been leaking all day. Like right now it's leaking. So I'm doing the face first in the hope that it's gonna stop leaking a little bit, but we just have to get on with the show. Like I can't wait forever. I just need to film this video now. So this is kind of like a creamy product. So I'm gonna go in with the Sage FO3 and see how I liked it. I'm just gonna dip in a little bit, and it feels dry while applying it. I don't feel like this is a super cool tone product. It definitely isn't like a gray type of product, but it's also not super golden or warm. Blends out really nicely. I'm not wearing a skin tint right now. I just did a little bit of spot concealing because I have really been regularly wearing skin tints. I've really gotten used to it, so I thought, okay, let's just let the skin breathe a little bit. So that looks really nice. It has a skin-like finish. I feel like there was still a little bit of glitter in the brush, but that definitely isn't from this bronzer. Like there's no glitter in here. It is really beautiful, very skin-like, very blendable. That is really nice. Okay, let's apply to the forehead. I do think this is a really beautiful product, but yeah, it's not super cool. I definitely still see a little bit of a warmth to it, which is not like super orangey or yellow. But if you're someone who wants something really cool to the point that it's almost a contour, like this isn't it. This is not that. This is definitely a bronzer and not a contour. Yeah, it feels fully dry. There's not something very creamy about it. It almost feels a little bit like, I don't know, a Super Shock bronzer or something like that. I really like it on the forehead. It's really blending out nicely. Just adding a little bit more. Okay, this is lovely. I think it's really nice. I do think that the color is working for me. I don't feel like it's too orangey and it's too stark against my skin. It's a really beautiful amount of pigmentation and depth level, and I really like kind of like the satinness that I see on my skin. It's not sheeny, but it's definitely very skin-like, which I do really like in a bronzer. Then I also got one of the Feel the Vibe face palettes, and I got the shade 01 Symphony. I went for the lightest one and thought that will probably work for me. It's a very nice cardboard packaging. And then we have a blush and highlight duo. We have kind of like a muted pink, a little bit darker, and then we have a champagne highlighter. These both felt very silky, very soft, swatch super smoothly. Also almost a little bit like a cream to powder kind of texture. So I think this is gonna be really nice. And everything in this collection has this green type of packaging. The outer boxes are that gingham style packaging, which I do really love. Like if the gingham was the actual packaging, I would have been so happy, but you cannot have everything. So let's apply this blush, and I don't know how pigmented this is gonna be, so well, kind of like medium pigment. It has that same kind of smooth blurring kind of satiny formula, and it is quite a natural color. Like it's like a natural flush. It has something a little muted, almost a little bronzy about it. It is looking really nice. Like it's kind of like that shade that you get when you get a little bit sunburned, like the sunburn blush. That is really beautiful. So this is with the blush, this is without. It just has a slight sheen, which is really gorgeous. So let's do the same on the other side. It has a little bit of warmth to it for sure. That is really beautiful. I'm almost a little bit scared to put on the highlighter because the highlighter looked very blinding, but we're just gonna build that up slowly. I do really like the way my skin is looking right now. Really enjoying that. All right, I'm gonna grab the Sigma highlighter brush and I'm gonna take a little bit and start applying. Yeah, that is very smooth, but a little goes a really long way. Like, that's definitely a very pigmented highlighter. It's really beautiful though. I think I want to keep it a little bit more on the subtle side. I'm just liking that for today, for this look. It's really beautiful. Okay, so that is the highlight as well. I think this side needs a little bit more to balance it out. Okay, so the cheeks are looking really good. I'm really liking it. That is really beautiful. Okay, so I applied Queen Vibes lip liner by Catrice because we're gonna apply the lip product that I bought from this collection. This is the Blooming Shine Shiny Lipstick and I got it in shade 303. I don't know what the name of this was. It's a pink lace and this is kind of like a muted raspberry color. Swatches really nicely, really smoothly and glossy. I'm really excited for this one. I think this is gonna be really good. So let's apply. I love these types of colors. I feel like it's almost a little bit more purpley now that I'm looking at it than I thought when I swatched it. And it's kind of like applying almost a little like a muted purpley nudie pink. It smells like makeup. I don't feel like it's really scented. There's just somewhat of an ingredient scent to it, I think. I think it's looking really nice. It's not really like a gloss in a stick, but there is definitely that glossiness to it. It feels really comfortable. It's not too thick, not too thin, and I really like this color. I think that's beautiful. It's kind of like in between a satin or cream and a gloss in a stick, I think. It's not like super glossy, it's not super sheer, but it definitely has that kind of like glossy element to it. I think this is a gorgeous color. I think I picked a great color. Alright, so in this collection we also have an eyeshadow palette that I bought that we're going to be testing out today. This is a Spring Break eyeshadow palette and this is a very interesting pastel eyeshadow palette. It is very cool tone, it's very muted. This is like the pastel palette for a muted summer if you're into color seasons. Like, this is that, and it's definitely my type of aesthetic. I love the tones in here. It's very soft. I'm wondering how it's going to show up on the eye, if it's going to look different enough on the eye, if it's going to be pigmented enough. In this palette we have one deepening up shade that I do think is going to go with all of these colors because all of these colors are very muted and grayed out, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. But we're gonna see how this is gonna work, how I'm gonna like it. Okay, so I'm thinking of doing some green in the inner part and then some purple in the outer part to deepen it up with the darker shade, and then we'll try some shimmers. Really, the thing is, we're gonna see how pigmented these are gonna be. I'm gonna start out with the shade More over here. I do think that this is a very interesting pastel palette, as I've said, because I don't feel like I've ever seen a pastel palette that really went this much into the soft, cool tones. Alright, so I hope my eye is not gonna betray me. Let's pat this on. That is very pigmented. That is really nice. That is definitely a beautiful mint shade. I love that. Blending the edges a little bit. Might get a little bit patchy here because that's where my eye has been tearing for hours. And also after I've applied my eyeshadow primer. That is a really nice mint color. I do really like that. My first time trying Wycon, I did have a little bit of an issue with some of the mattes. So I'm really hoping that this palette is just gonna be great and it was more of a fluke and that is not gonna be what Wycon is really like. I'm gonna put a little bit of this under my eye as well. Right under here. Let's see if that's gonna stick because I don't have any primer there, but I think it's working out. Gonna look a little odd before I deepen everything up. It's very powdery. I can really see the powder flying around. For the outer corner, I think I'm gonna go into shade Break and then we're gonna deepen it up with shade Laugh. I was first thinking of doing the lightest purple first, but maybe layering 3 shades on top of one of the very lightest shades in the palette is a little bit much. and not really necessary. I really like this tone of muted purple. I really liked it. That's a really nice shade. And it's working well. So I guess maybe I will indeed like the eyeshadow formula by Wycon. Like, I do have to build it up a little bit, but it's a very soft color, so I get it. It's nothing too crazy to me. I'm also using quite a fluffy brush. And then I'm also gonna put a little bit of the purple under my eye. So that shade called Break under here. This is not the best brush to do this, but it's working. It's working out. Alright, it's soft, but I don't feel like it's too soft. There's something about it where I still think I could wear this look with the shimmer on top and really enjoy the amount of dimension I get with this. I feel like sometimes you really don't know with soft palettes if you can get the dimension. It really depends, because for example the Daydreamer palette by Beauty Bay, it had some potential to still add some dimension, but it didn't really. Like, there were 2 shades that could, but for the rest it was really hard to do. I feel like with this, like, this is a pretty light shade, but it still looks dimensional. I don't know what it is, but it is what's happening. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into the shade called Laugh, and I'm gonna put that in my outer corners. This is a pretty deep kind of like charcoal color, so we're gonna see how much definition we can get with this, because I feel like that will really determine how user-friendly this palette is. I feel like it's kind of turning like a violet in this look. Kind of like a dark violet, because it's adapting to the purple underneath. I feel like that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go in with the brush that had the purple on the edges and kind of blend that out. I feel like that is working well. I'm liking that. And I go in a little here and a little bit more blending. I like that. I think this is gonna be a good look. Like, these mattes so far are easier to work with than the mattes, well, not all of the mattes, but some of the mattes I've tried in the Cool Glam eyeshadow palette. Like, the deepest shade in that palette is just a little tough to deal with for me. Like, I tried it twice, just a little hard to use. Gonna blend over the edges with the residue of the purple. And I'm gonna take a little bit of the dark color and use it right in the outer part here. It has become a little bit more smoky. So I think if I'd want a really light look, I wouldn't even go into this shade, or I would just use it as a shadow liner. But I do think it's turning out beautifully. Okay, let's do a shimmer. And I kind of want to go into the shade called Occasion. This kind of like iridescent blue to purple duochrome, slightly shimmery shade. It looked really nice in the swatches. We have some different textures in the Wycon palette. Like, some shades, some shimmers are a little bit more almost on the gritty textured side. Some are a little bit more iridescent, feel a little bit more putty. This is a little bit more on the putty side, and yeah, definitely has that iridescence. So let's see how this looks on the eye. That's really beautiful. It definitely has a sheer base, and you can see through it what's underneath it, but that's really beautiful. This eyeshadow palette is 50 euros, which is not cheap by any means, but I do feel like they put a bit more like time and effort into these palettes than a lot of drugstore brands. Like, we have some different textures, we have some special shades. I like the packaging. We have 15 different shades, which gives you some options. This is really beautiful. Like, it's a very elegant shimmer. It's not chunky. It's really nice. Now the question is, what am I gonna do in the inner corner, or like the inner part of the lid? I think I might go into this shade called Blossom. And I believe this one was a little bit more flaky, so I'm just gonna take a little bit and smooth that out with my finger. It is kind of like a white, silvery shimmer. Really beautiful. And I'm really taking the tiniest bit. Okay, now we're going on top of my teary eye. So if you see any creasing here or weirdness, that is the reason. I have a little bit of fallout, nothing too crazy, but a little bit over here. I'm gonna live with it. I think I will survive. I want to take the lightest shade in the palette. I want to take the shade Sunny, and I'm gonna put that in my inner corner. I want a matte inner corner for this look. And this is kind of like a really, really light pink. That is pigmented. I love that. I feel like pastels have come a long way. Doesn't happen often that I try pastel that I think is super lackluster and bad quality. Kind of blending that into each other. And I think I'm gonna go back in with a little bit of green, just to make that pop a little bit more. And then I think I'm gonna go in with the shade 11 again. I'm gonna use it as a shadow liner. This look hasn't turned out as extremely light as I was maybe thinking it would. But I'm glad I could definitely get something a little deeper. But then add the contrast with the pastels in the inner corner. I add a little bit more here, more precisely. I can feel my eye watering. I hope I can finish the look before I ruin everything. Okay, so I was actually thinking I wanted to try this 24-hour everlasting eye pencil as well by Wycon. This is a purple or like a light lilac eye pencil, and this one is in 03 Glycine or Glycine. Glycine, that sounds more accurate. That sounds more like a word. And I haven't actually swatched this, but this might be really fun. I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna see if it works. Oh, that's actually looking really good. That's actually quite creamy. That is such a good color. Do you see that? Okay, let's see if it sticks to my watery eye. Or if it opens the floodgates. Please don't tear up. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. Okay, I think we're okay. Really like that. Okay, I'm gonna put on mascara and my brows, and then I will be back with the finished look. I am looking at my skin, and I do think that there is the teeniest, tiniest shimmer particle in this bronzer. It's just kind of like really subtly part of this bronzer. I can see it on my forehead, but it's like from a distance you just see that satiny sheen, but there is something there. And then when I look at this bronzer, I also feel like if I look really, really closely, that I can see something that looks like a shimmer. It's a very, very subtle. So it's not like if you don't like a shimmery bronzer, you're not gonna like this. It is just so subtle that it becomes a sheen. But I did wanna like say that. That's really interesting. Like I almost didn't catch that. Alright, and then here we have the final look, the finished look. I put on some mascara, I did my brows. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'm actually very excited. I really like this eye look. I really like all of the products that I've tried. I've had a great time. So the bronzer, as I said, it has a slight sheen, but I don't feel like it is something too chunky or noticeable. I actually think this is really beautiful, and I cannot wait to use this more. It's a very interesting formula, different than a lot of bronzers that I've tried. Really blendable, really smooth on the skin, very perfecting. Like I'm not wearing any skin tint right now, and it's just looking very nice, I think, on top of my like natural skin. I just put a little bit of concealer around some spots on my nose for like your idea of what's going on here. So I think this is really nice. The lip product is really comfortable. I really like the shade of this. Like it's really beautiful. I think it's gonna be quite hydrating. We're gonna see how long it's gonna wear. And then of course also the cheek duo. I think this is really nice. I like the color of this blush a lot. Formula as well. Really smooth, kind of blurring. It has that natural sheen, and then the highlighter. I could easily make this look a little bit more natural, while you could see in a swatch how extremely glowy this can be. And then of course the eyeshadow palette. This was the make it or break it moment for me and Wycon eyeshadows, because I didn't have perfect look. with the other eyeshadow palettes, but this one, I didn't really have an issue with this. Everything was pigmented. The color story of this makes a lot of sense. I think the shimmer on the lid is really beautiful. It just turned out really nicely, really fun, and you can go a little bit more smoky. Like these tones are a little deeper, a little bit more smoky, but you can also go really light and airy. I love the addition of this cool tone yellow over here. I haven't used it yet in this look, but I think this is gonna be a palette that I reach into a lot. Also because it's more dimensional, it gives more contrast than some other like more light palettes that I've tried. Like this gives me the options that I want. So all in all, I'm very excited about this collection. I'm really happy with my look. I'm quite excited about this brand. I think you're gonna see more of this brand on my channel. And then this is gonna be it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and then I will see you in my next one. Bye bye.